Hey cats, it's Ed, Light Strike Bud here. I've had requests from the viewers to compare this shoe, the ADIOS Pro 3, up against practically every other shoe in my collection. The majority of the comparisons requested have been against some of the top super shoes that have been released over the last 12 months. There's heel stacks here that would make even Gene Simmons blush. Some of the members of the glam rock band The Sweet might even think twice. Today, a battle of the ADIOS Pro 3 up against the rest. Part 1. We're going to dive straight in today, guys. So many shoes that I want to get through in the video today. Let's see what you're made of. Firstly, up against the Asics Metaspeed Sky Plus. I think the Metaspeed Sky Plus is probably the closest thing that we've got in the current range of shoes that is like an old school race flat. Take that with a pinch of salt. I mean, there's a lot of midsole foam here, but it's quite the racer. Perhaps something that I wouldn't really pull out to use in training aside for some very fast sessions perhaps. A much narrower heel here than the ADIOS Pro 3, and the lowest heel stack as well that I've measured in my size. This is a UK 10.5. I've got about 39mm. I think the drop from heel to toe is similar between these two shoes. A touch lower. I think this one's around about 5mm, and the ADIOS Pro 3 is about 6.5. The ADIOS Pro 3 is wider than the Metaspeed Sky Plus in the midfoot and the heel. Certainly the Asics shoe is a lot firmer and more rigid than the Adidas shoe. If you're worried about weight in terms of racing, this one's about 25 grams lighter. Now there's a half size difference, but I think we'd still probably get about 20 grams. That could make all the difference if you're doing a marathon. This personally for me is probably a half marathon shoe really. I've raced a couple of 10Ks in this one and I wouldn't hesitate to use it for 5K. I think if versatility is one of the chief things you look for in a running shoe, then the ADIOS Pro 3's probably got the beating of the Metaspeed Sky Plus. I mean, you could use this every day if you wanted to, and I have been, because it just feels so good. A touch more stability perhaps in the Adidas shoe with that wider heel, and I think if we're talking toe box height and width, the Adidas has got the beating of the Metaspeed Sky Plus. So very much for racing and faster paced sessions this one, but if I had to have one right now, it would be the ADIOS Pro 3. On to the Vaporfly Next Percent 2 now. The old arch smasher itself. This still remains the GOAT race shoe for many people out there. Now, even though this shoe is about half size up from the Adidas, it's still about 15 grams lighter. Do the math. This is narrower in both midfoot surface area and in the heel. Similar stack height, but again, I think in terms of versatility, the ADIOS Pro 3 will appeal to a wider range of runners. That increased stability in the Adidas shoe and the lack of that sort of pinch in the arch area is probably gonna sell a few more pairs. There's a lot of people that pick this up and find irritation when running in it. It's always in this area of the shoe, every time. I wonder how many pairs that Nike have actually had sent back to them that they've had to put out into outlet stores purely because people just couldn't get on with the fit. It's certainly one to avoid if you have a flatter arch. I'm finding there's a little bit more support in the ADIOS Pro 3 over the Vaporfly Next Percent 2, and it certainly feels like there's a lot more underfoot, which there is in terms of midsole foam. It does look as if Nike are going to rectify that in the upcoming Vaporfly Next Percent 3, shifting some of the unused foam at the heel area of the shoe, mainly this bit, up front, and maybe making it a little wider. I think if you run on the mid to forefoot, and probably a lot of people do when they're running faster in a race, then the Vaporfly Next Percent 2 may well work for you. So I think the ADIOS Pro 3 is a little bit more tailored to a wider range of foot strikes. There's nothing in it price-wise. I think these are exactly the same in terms of earth credits. A little bit down to personal preference. I think I'd actually prefer the outsole in the ADIOS Pro 3 over the Nike. Wins by a huge distance, in fact. It's just way more durable. Continental takes the win. Though in terms of toe box width and height, I think if you need that, the Vaporfly Next Percent 2 just shades it. Now, the closest thing I found to the ADIOS Pro 3 is the ALPHAFLY Next Percent 2. You may say he's completely lost it. Well, just hear me out. Now, this shoe does come in about 22 grams heavier than the Adidas model. That's probably going to put a few people off already. Though heel stacks and midsole surface area are pretty much exactly the same. I do think the ADIOS Pro 3 is a bit of a reply to the ALPHAFLY Next Percent 2 conversation. If you want a little bit more surface area and stability there on a marathon, this is probably the shoe for you. I'm absolutely certain that they've carved out this section of the shoe here purely to make a trampoline-like effect. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the ADIOS Pro 3 is by far the more conventional of the two shoes. But it is, in terms of that sort of upper fit, it doesn't feel like you're trying to pull on some sort of weird boot or something. Your foot just slides into this one, where it's a almighty struggle if you haven't got a shoehorn with the ALPHAFLY Next% 2. The massive extra midsole here that you've got in the Nike shoe might be total overkill for some people. I do find that sometimes with this one, that it just feels like there's a load of stuff there that I don't really need. Extra ballast. This Atom Knit 2 material that's been used in the ALPHAFLY Next% 2 is kind of rigid as well. It's not quite as flexible as the mesh that we have in the ADIOS Pro 3. There's no comparison at pace really. I certainly think this one is a marathon aimed shoe where the versatility kicks in with the Adidas Adizero Pro 3. Just feels great at pretty much any pace really that I've tested it out. Maybe it's because it's a little lighter, a little bit more nimble, or it could be to do with that killer outsole. Both shoes are as stable as a car with newly tuned suspension. If I had to have one, I think I'd pick the quieter ADIOS Pro 3 on this occasion. And it's a darn sight cheaper as well, and that's always good. You can put it into the gas and electric pot. This thing's louder than the Ramones in 1977 at the Rainbow. If you understand that one, then I respect you. We got 2 to go. If you're enjoying the video today, hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications when I roll them out for you. Also give this video a thumbs up like and share it with your running buddies. Next up, against the Endorphin Pro 3 from SAUCONY. Spot on heel stacks here, exactly the same in both shoes, and there's a 17-gram weight advantage here in the Endorphin Pro 3. A super flexible fish-like upper. I do think it is a little bit superior to the mesh that we've got on the ADIOS Pro 3, but the tongue could slip down and spoil your full Snickers. It's kind of like an invisible upper almost. On foot, you barely feel it at all. And then you've got that insanely cushioned Power Run PB underfoot and the Magic P-Backs insole atop the midsole mountain. It's certainly the least present shoe on foot out of all 6 today. Ultra compressive and now with comparable grip to some of the other super shoes out there. Though in terms of outsole, I think I would still pick the ADIOS Pro 3 due to that continental rubber. There's just a bit more of it there to protect that precious midsole foam, which does still take a bit of a beating here in the Endorphin Pro 3. I think there's little in it here, dead heat between the ADIOS Pro 3 and the Endorphin Pro 3. Don't think you can lose really with either of those two shoes. They are right up there in terms of my scores over the course of the last few months. Last but by no means least, we've got the 2 rivals, Puma versus Adidas. The Fast R Nitro Elite versus the ADIOS Pro 3. These two weigh in at exactly the same weight, 260 grams in my UK size 11. Though I have found that the Puma is a tad lower in terms of heel stack. It's only a few millimeters in it, but that seems to make all the difference to some people. It is a little bit narrower in terms of the midfoot through to the toe box though. I think it's a bit of horses for courses here, depending what you want to get out of the shoe. The narrower toe box in the Puma makes this one a shorter range shoe, certainly one I'd use for racing, certainly one I'd use for faster paced training. No doubt I'd run a 5 or 10k in this one, half marathon too, but I think the Adidas is a sort of longer range contender. Upper fit a tad more conventional in the ADIOS Pro 3 against the Puma. Now don't get me wrong, the Puma's still very form fitting and it may suit runners who are after a more controlled midsole. You've got a little bit of EVA back there in the heel rather than it just being super soft, squishy stuff. The concentrated feel of the Puma is something all of its own. There's only really one other shoe that I've tested that feels like it, and that's the Tempo Next%. Grip is about equal, though I would suggest that the flatter rubber that we find in the ADIOS Pro 3 is a bit more road ready. There's a little bit more depth here in the Puma. As a half marathon man though, I'm edging towards the Puma on this one. I'm just really enjoying the aggressive nature of the shoe, and it's just completely wild. It's something all of its own. Slightly higher drop and a really bright and striking design. I think if I had to have one at the moment, it would be the Puma Fast R Nitro Elite. Though I am really enjoying this shoe at a whole range of paces, something I can take out and use, and I'm not too worried about the durability of it. It's looking great so far. So that's all my comparisons for today. It's an awful lot to chew on. What do you make of the 3-stripe London Marathon favourite? Let me know your thoughts and opinions on all of these down in the comments. Musical interlude time. Really excited to see that Creedence Clearwater Revival have released a live recording of a very famous show. April the 14th, 1970, live at the Royal Albert Hall. Loads of classic tunes here, guys. I've listened through pretty much all of the album and it's very enjoyable. Born on the Bayou, Midnight Special, and of course the famous Bad Moon Rising. One of my favourites as well is Travelling Band, and of course Fortunate Son. You can't really beat this simple live performance. 2 guitars, bass, drums, vocals. It's just fantastic. Lots of space there and some killer guitar tones as well. It's quite amazing to think that at one point Creedence Clearwater Revival were outselling the Beatles. They were huge. Sadly things didn't really work out and you get those sort of inter-band dynamics going a bit wrong. Still great to hear though, and does make you wonder what they could have been if they'd carried on rocking. Go and check it out, guys. Creedence Clearwater Revival live at the Royal Albert Hall. I think it was only released a couple of weeks ago. Thanks for tuning in, people. It's always appreciated. Hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications. Give this video a thumbs up, like, and share it with your running buddies. My name's EDDBUD, and I'll be seeing you